On the afternoon of May 26, 1828, a shoemaker in Nuremberg noticed a teenage boy standing alone in the town square. His clothes were oddly formal but badly worn, and he walked with a strange, unsteady gait, as if he barely walked on solid ground. His feet were raw beneath his torn boots. When approached by the police, he couldn't form coherent sentences, repeating only a handful of disjointed phrases like, "don't know," and "take me home." Even ordinary sunlight seemed to cause him physical pain. Eventually, doctors and investigators pieced together the story he was trying to tell. He claimed he had spent his entire remembered life locked alone in a pitch-black cell. His only company was a wooden toy horse. His only food was bread and water, and he had never once seen the face of the person who kept him there. The local townspeople were deeply moved by his condition. Nuremberg formally adopted the boy, funding his daily care, his housing, and his education. His soft, uncalloused feet and genuine inability to process the outside world provided a grim proof. The physical trauma was so severe and so apparent that the town authorities simply accepted his harrowing story of total isolation. But the boy hadn't arrived entirely empty-handed. When he first appeared in the square, he was clutching a letter addressed to a local cavalry captain. It was from an anonymous stranger who claimed to have secretly raised the boy since 1812. Enclosed with it was a second note, supposedly written years earlier by the boy's own mother. The mother's note provided a name, Kaspar Hauser. It claimed his father had been a cavalry officer who died before he was born. The anonymous author of the first letter explained that he was finally releasing Kaspar so the boy could pursue his father's profession. Investigators reviewing the documents soon noticed a glaring forensic error. Despite claiming completely different authors and dates supposedly years apart, both letters were written on the exact same type of paper, using the exact same ink, in identical handwriting. The physical evidence pointed to an unsettling conclusion. The distinct dates and the two separate authors were entirely fabricated. If Kaspar Hauser wrote both letters himself, he didn't arrive in Nuremberg as a blank slate. He arrived with a script, one that required a level of premeditation his doctors believed he was physically and mentally incapable of. As Kaspar learned to speak and read, local fascination grew into a continental obsession. His face and his mysterious origin story dominated European newspapers. This diagram shows the House of Baden's succession line. Whispers circulated that Kaspar was actually the legitimate prince, swapped at birth. According to this theory, a rival branch orchestrated the kidnapping, clearing their own direct path to the throne. In October 1829, Kaspar was found bleeding heavily from a gash across his forehead. He told police he had been ambushed by a man dressed in black, an attacker sent to permanently silence him. The attack split public opinion. Supporters argued this proved the royal assassination plot was active. Skeptics pointed out that public interest in Kaspar had recently started to wane, suggesting he might have inflicted the wound himself to keep his story in the headlines. These royal rumors put Kaspar under the scrutiny of Europe's most powerful families. If he was a legitimate heir, he was a target for professional assassins. If he was a fraud, he was trapped by a lie that had grown too large for him to control. 4 years later, the tension finally snapped. On December 14, 1833, Kaspar stumbled through his front door, clutching his side, bleeding profusely from a deep stab wound. Before collapsing, he managed to gasp out an explanation. He said a stranger had approached him in the local palace gardens, promising to finally reveal his true origins. As the man extended a small bag toward him, he drove a blade into Kaspar's chest. Police rushed to the gardens, but the crime scene was barren. There were no visible footprints, no witnesses to the altercation, and no murder weapon anywhere. The only physical evidence recovered was the small purse the attacker supposedly handed over. Inside was a cryptic note written entirely in mirror writing. It contained a riddle hinting at the killer's identity, but explicitly named no one. Kaspar succumbed to his injuries 3 days later. His death locked the investigation in place, leaving behind a bizarre physical artifact that simultaneously proved there was an attacker and provided absolutely no way to find him. For over a century and a half, the romantic narrative prevailed. Historians and the public largely accepted that Kaspar Hauser was a royal heir, murdered to protect a political bloodline. But in 1996 and 2002, modern science finally intervened. Researchers extracted DNA samples directly from the original bloodstains on Kaspar's preserved clothing. They compared those genetic markers against the living descendants of the House of Baden. The results were absolute. Kaspar's DNA was a complete mismatch. He had zero biological connection to the royal family. Removing the royal connection eliminated the political logic for an assassination. Investigators reconsidered the crime scene and the possibility that the fatal wound was part of a staged attempt that went wrong. Which leaves the ultimate question. If there were no political assassins hunting him through the gardens, who actually drove the knife? The forensic vacuum supports a highly disturbing hoax scenario. Many modern historians believe Kaspar, terrified of slipping back into obscurity, stabbed himself to stage one final, dramatic assassination attempt, but misjudged the angle and accidentally struck a lethal blow. The alternative is just as tragic. He truly was a profoundly abused, nameless captive who managed to survive years of darkness, only to be targeted and butchered by a completely random phantom in a public park. He walked out of nowhere in 1828 with no history anyone could verify. 5 years later, he was violently removed from the world, leaving behind a legacy where his origins, his attacker, and his actual name will remain a permanent mystery.